All right, all right, all right. It's time to call this meeting to order. Welcome, welcome. You're welcome to grab a seat. Stand by your high top. Whatever is comfortable for you. Very nice. Welcome to this celebration of a one fine, sustainable, let's call this a one fine, sustainable journey, shall we? I'm Shelley Irwin, host of the WGBU Morning Show. Honored to be here, honored to be your tour guide for this afternoon. As we take a look back, and as we smell the rose of today, and then we're going to think about the future when it comes to this land of Laker sustainability. And yes, we will be thanking a one Norm Christopher for his remarkable leadership. Norm, are you in the house? Where are you? Where's Norm? There he is. Norm, smile for me, my friend. Soon, several Lakers and supporters will be speaking on behalf of you, Norman, and on this journey. I've had the honor of serving as a voice for much of the mission under Norman's leadership with Grand Valley's Office of Sustainability Practices, along with key partners, opening the microphone frequently to entertain, inspire, educate a West Michigan audience about this sustainability, this greening, these environmental issues. So thank you, Norm, for your faith and trust with that platform. I promise it will continue. 3 fun facts about Norman Christopher. He loves to fish. He had quite... There we go. There's always a Mayor Hartwell in the room. He had quite an adventure on a recent Lake Powell houseboat vacation with his family. We're to ask about that. He just covered his head. And he's written a book about Sustainability Demystified, so required reading for your students. Let's begin this journey. We begin with Dean Ann L. Hiskus, Brooks College of Interdisciplinary Studies.
Well, thank you very much, Shelley. So I want to welcome everybody to this grand event as we celebrate Grand Valley's sustainability journey and honor Norman Christopher's contributions to this marvelous journey. I want to thank all of you for being here. I see lots of faculty and staff, people from different colleges around Grand Valley, student affairs, people from facilities, finance, operations, many community partners of us. I see people from the Seeds of Promise, from the Grand Rapids Sustainable Community Partnerships, the Lake Shore Sustainable Community Partnerships, students who've worked in the office, and many others. So thank you all for being here. And your presence here represents how indeed the sustainability journey has been a team effort. Everybody has contributed to that. And while we focus a lot on Norman today, he would be the first to say it's not about him, it's about the journey and about everybody who contributed to it. So many of you, I'm sure, have gone through your own sustainability journeys, maybe at Grand Valley, maybe other places, particularly as you've worked with Norman. And I'm no different. I'm very ashamed to admit that when I came to Grand Valley in the fall of 2012, I had never heard of triple bottom line sustainability. So it's been a real education for me these past 6.5 years. So I've been on a personal sustainability journey with Norman as my guide. So Norman, thank you very much for all the things I've learned from you, and I'd like to share some of those things. It's not by chance, I don't think, that my sustainability guide has been named Norman. Many of you call him Norm, but I've always called you Norman. Just think about it. N-O-R-M-A-N. N. Neutral broker. How many times have I heard Norman say the role of Grand Valley is to be a neutral broker in bringing people together around sustainability conversations so that they can be productive rather than divisive. Thank you, Norman, for that lesson. Oh, outreach. It's not enough to be sustainable yourself. We have to tell the sustainability story. Thank you very much, Shelley, for helping us do that. We have to share our expertise with the community and act as a neutral broker. And so the presence of people here today exemplify the fruit of your efforts at outreach. And thank you for that lesson. R, what in the world could that be, right? R, sustainability? Recycle. I learned that there are many, many ways to recycle and repurpose, and that's very, very important. For example, we now have our surplus store, Grand Valley Surplus Store, so thank you to all those who made that happen. M, management. I learned that triple bottom line is all about integrative management, where decision-making is informed by looking at the holistic picture of the impacts of decisions on the social and human welfare, the environment, and economics. It's hard to integrate these different factors when they have different units of measure. But that's an important lesson that I've learned from Norman about integrating those things in decision-making. A is for assessment. Assessment is important not only to HLC, Chris, but to our identity as a green and sustainable institution. We need to assess where we are in terms of sustainability among all those myriad factors on the ASHE STARS self-reporting report. We need to assess where we are in order to get to where we want to go. So thank you, Norman, for telling me about the importance of assessment in sustainability initiatives. N. The last letter in what I consider Norman's name, and where I want to end my remarks as well. N, nationally recognized. What I've learned is that it takes years and years of hard work, coordinated team effort by everybody in this room to be nationally recognized as one of the greenest cool schools in the entire United States. It's been a great journey so far, Norman. Thanks for serving as my guide. Thanks for serving as a guide to everybody in the room and to the institution. And I know that Grand Valley's journey and my own sustainability journey will continue. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Christopher Pluff, Assistant Vice President for Academic Affairs. Come on up. Assessment, Accreditation, and Planning, Associate Professor with the School of Engineering.
Well, thank you. I was asked to say a few words here because I've had the opportunity to work with Norman on that sustainability journey for probably, I was trying to figure out how long it's been. It's at least 15? Yeah? Give or take years. It's been quite a while. It dates back to my earliest days here working in the Career Center. And I remember we were, at that time, it was a one-person show, really. It was Norman, and it was an idea here on campus more than anything. And you know, it was something that he needed to do to nurture and to develop and to grow. And at that time, we were talking about what can we do for internships? What can we do for work for students if they were to go into areas like this? What does that all mean in the marketplace in terms of what can a student do? What are the skill sets they need? And that's blossomed all the way through to the current, where we've done, and Norman and his team have done a number of studies with the greater community to identify what are those skill sets and putting together materials that can really now people can get their arms around and say, like, here's what this means, and here's how this can be used, and you can take this and translate it and transfer it into meaningful careers, you know, for our students, which is really the bottom line that we're all trying to strive for here on campus. But going back to those days, we also had, I remember spending lots of time together trying to figure out how do we, you know, get our arms around what this means in terms of its impact for the campus and the community, and some of those early economic impact reports, and looking at how do you measure the impact? And it was difficult. I remember lots of times going back and forth in those early days. It still wasn't well understood, and Norman was just a leader and a visionary in terms of how this could be realized, not only here on campus, but in the community. And from there, things just sort of continued to blossom and grow, and to the point now where we have an office of sustainability and an excellent team that they've got there leading efforts to make this a campus-wide initiative. It's been embedded into the university plan. It's one of the institution's value statements now, which it was not back in those early days. And so that shows where this institution has put and valued this concept here on campus. And it's really now been embedded into the planning. We've got a CSAC group that's a campus-wide initiative that I've had the pleasure to be able to serve on with Norman and a lot of the other folks here in this room, to really embed and show how we can improve and grow the sustainability efforts and initiatives on campus, but also in the community itself. And it's now it's part of the operations of what we do. It was instrumental. I know, Ann, you said that we don't want to say HLC, but we just had our accreditation visit, and a lot of the information that we were able to share around what we're doing about that value and the sustainability practices here on campus were some of the highlights that we were able to share that really benefited us in the work that we were doing around our reaffirmation of accreditation. So it's really been an exciting journey to see where it came from, those 12, 15 years ago to where it is now. And it couldn't have been done with Norman and his leadership and his vision, like I said, in this process. So we're really thankful for that. I'm excited for what I see for the CSAC group campus-wide, as well as the office and leading that forward. And I think there's a lot of great things to be done yet. And I know we'll be leaders as a campus and as a community in those initiatives. But Norman, you got us to this point, and we're really appreciative of that, and we thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Tim Timish, come on up, Associate Vice President of Facilities Services. Round of applause for Tim.
Thanks, Shelley. Sustainability really has become an important aspect in various areas of facilities. We formally started reporting, and Chris was talking about this, started the process back in 2003. Several from across the university came together, and we really started pulling together a sustainability report. And what we learned is that we were really doing a lot of things already, and we were doing pretty good. But at the same time, we learned that there was a lot more. So it was very enlightening from that standpoint. We were doing well in a lot of areas, but that we could do a lot more. And of course, with a lot of Norman's nudges over the years, we got better. And we learned that we could get better, and we did get better. I'd get a phone call from Norman, and how many of you have gotten phone calls from Norman? Yep, and were your head spinning when you were done? I would have to go to the dictionary and look up a couple words afterwards. But as a result of those phone calls, I'd get off the phone, and next thing I'm talking to my staff about light-emitting diodes, LED lighting, carbon footprint, ASHI STARS report, vending misers, just occupancy sensors, just a lot of different things that really, again, helped us go on to that next step. So sustainability has really taken a foothold in the facilities area, and I want to share some of those areas. So recycling, Ann mentioned recycling a little bit. We divert over 60% of our trash right now, and that's up from 25% when this whole thing started back in 2003. So that's really come a long way. We have Recycle Mania competition. Our students for 8 weeks each winter in the housing area compete in a Recycle Mania competition, and we're nationally recognized for that. Last year, our students took 8th place out of 229 schools nationally. So again, that's some of that national recognition that we get. Zero waste football games have become the norm for us. The most recent one, we diverted 80% of the trash from one of our football games. So things like that, and those are student projects. We incorporate students into all of that we do, so they're really learning and partaking in this whole process, which is really great. Composting was mentioned. We've really worked with our food service on campus, Aramark, to compost a lot of their disposable silverware, napkins, paper plates, whatever the case is, paper towels from across campus. Last year, we composted 2.8 million pounds of refuse from the campus. So, and then finally in the recycling area, project donation at the end of the year when students move out, there was always a lot left. Students move out and we're throwing things away, canned goods, furniture, clothing, you name it. We started project donation and we work with charities in the area, and thousands and thousands of pounds each year are diverted and go to these charities, and it's really a great effort. LEED construction is another one. We're all very familiar with LEED construction on campus. Grand Valley University has been a leader in that regard. We have 25 projects now that have either been certified or have received a silver, gold, or platinum designation. So just a tremendous thing, and it's really did help put the university on the map with that type of design effort. So because it incorporates obviously a lot of energy savings, windows, you name it across the board, it's been an important design effort and it's been incorporated at the university. It's very important. Stormwater's been another area, very important. The university is heavily invested in managing stormwater on campus. On the Ellendale campus, we have a stormwater structure, several ponds to the west, and we divert most of our stormwater from the east side of campus. It goes west now and filters through these ponds, and it's really become a tremendous effort. Many of you are aware of the stormwater repair work that we had to do to the ravine behind Cook DeWitt and Padnos. Spent well over $1 million repairing that 2 years ago because of the erosion that had taken place for years in our ravines. And this new stormwater structure to the west is helping to alleviate that problem. At the same time, we have a couple ponds on campus, Umberg Pond, most of you are familiar with, and then a pond over by Leber Stadium. Last year, we harvested over 8 million gallons of stormwater that are used in our campus irrigation system. So we've got ways that we continue to use and take care of our assets that we have on campus in that regard. And finally, we've even installed stormwater retention structures under parking lots that help when we have those large rain events so that we don't have the erosion and we manage that. So stormwater has been a huge effort and a huge investment on this part of the university. Energy is another area that we've made significant inroads. When we started this journey 15 years ago, we've really tracked working with Terry Paul in our facilities area, and Norman's well aware of this. Right now, we've reduced our electric consumption per square foot by 28%. We've reduced our gas consumption by 34% per square foot, and our water consumption by 34% per square foot. So we've really made some inroads. As a result, our utility bill is $2.2 million less than it would be if we had not put these in place. When you calculate that on what would that mean from an additional student hour per hour cost, it really begins to be real numbers. So at the same time, we've set aside, as a result of some one-time projects, we've saved another $1.5 million because of some of our energy conservation efforts. And we've also been able to reclaim $1 million in energy rebates. So as we've really put energy conservation measures in place, they financially have had a huge impact. The university also, our energy portfolio, 15% of our energy portfolio is now alternative energy. So between wind and solar and photovoltaic and geothermal, we continue to grow our alternative energy portfolio at the university is a big step. As we fiscally are able to, we continue to grow that side of it. We have contracts now with our utilities that go out 20 years for wind and solar. So that's pretty important, and we continue to make inroads in that regard. Bus transportation, and I've seen some numbers up here. We have over 2 million rides a year on our bus transportation side. And that's equated in saving our faculty, staff, and students about $10 million a year in transportation costs. So again, some real numbers that really help our students out. Of course, the Laker line's going to come into account in a couple years. Another fantastic addition that's going to help our students between campuses, between Allendale, Grand Rapids, of course, and the Health Hill. And then what's happened as a result of all of this, and Norman's helped get the message out, Grand Valley's been named one of the best workplace for commuters in the area, and we continue to get that type of designation, so really important. We've done some really important things in the ground areas where we've implemented pest management, integrated pest management practices. We do a lot of bioswales and rain gardens, and a variety of tree plantings, et cetera. So a lot of things that also help us as that have less of an impact on the environment. We've gone to ice melt products instead of using rock salt, and just do a lot of things that also help from an environmental standpoint. And finally, in our custodial area, we kind of do the same thing as we implemented a greenhouse keeping policy in 2014, so we reduced the amount of chemicals. For example, we were using, in 2010, we used 500 gallons of floor stripper on campus. Last year, we used 10 gallons. And when you start doing things like that, it really creates a much better environment, and there's less impact on our buildings, as well as the people that live and work in those buildings. So we're pretty proud. Again, those are just kind of some of the highlights. There's a lot of areas on campus that facilities impacted from a sustainability standpoint, but those are kind of some of the highlights. So a lot of initiatives, and we continue to do things to make the university better in that regard. So just a quick thank you and a shout out to Norman here. So I know this isn't about him. He told me that in his 5 phone calls on this whole thing. But anyway, a quick shout out because he's certainly he's helped guide us and helped us tremendously from a facility standpoint over the years, and we appreciate all he's done, and I know that that's going to continue on in the years to come, so you left a nice footprint behind. Thank you.
All that money saved, Norman's going to ask for a retirement check of a bonus, right? Dean Frederick J. Anzac, come on up. You, the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences.
It's not about Norman. Yes, it is. I decided to make it about Norman, and I appreciate the journey metaphor, but I'm going to ignore it. Today, I want to honor Norman in a kind of Dickensian frame. I hope I'm not a Scrooge in handing out the praise to him, to Grand Valley, and to the region. For my college, for class, a vision of sustainability past reminds us of how we've walked many steps at Norman's prompting and pushing and suggesting. Some were large and challenging, some were quite humble. I'm not going to go through that list. You'll be hearing more from other folks, and Tim's list, I think, was startling. But I would want to mention courses like green chemistry and green toxicology, the geography and sustainable planning department that lives up to its name, both in that kind of learning and in the learning that students are able to have when they participate in these practices. They acquire important skills, and our students who've been participating in sustainability are marketable and highly desirable. Why did the university do all of this commitment? Well, because from our point of view, sustainability present is always integrally related to liberal education. our university's mission. Now we know Norman is not to be directly replaced, and anyway, how could anyone hope to replace Norman? Sooner the ghost of Christmas future try to substitute for the jolly Christmas past. But we know that we've come this far, and we just can't stop. So each of us will have to take leadership. No longer can we just suggest it to Norman and watch it take off. We have to go do it in pushing sustainability into the future. In the spirit of Norman Christopher, we need to make our sustainability efforts sustainable. And may I suggest along that line, just an inference from Norman's vision, that the key is not necessarily more programs, but better integration with Holland and Muskegon and Grand Rapids. Sustainability seems to be headed towards a regional frame, which could place Grand Valley in the functional center, just like we're in the geographical center. Let's take advantage of that here at GVSU for our home and for our students. Can we do it? Well, it's not too late. We haven't missed it. The spirits of sustainability can do what they like. Of course they can. And what better way to recognize Norman's legacy than by extending it? Norman, a very sincere thank you for your values, your energy, your commitment. Look around the room. You've blessed us, everyone.
Thank you, Dean. From one dean to the next, Dean George Grant Jr. Come on up, Dean George, College of Community and Public Service. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Norman Christopher. The C stands for, no, I'm joking. I don't have anything for C, so let's go to the A. I don't have nothing there either. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Norman and the journey. One day I looked on my calendar and there was this name, said Norman Christopher, and I go, who's this guy? And so it came and met, and he never went away. And what it was is that Norman didn't want to talk about sustainability within the university. He wanted to talk about sustainability outside of the university. And so like college, there's a lot of work involved in a lot of different things outside of Grand Valley, and that's where he wanted the next phase of sustainability to go. And so we worked together on things with criminal justice and looking at sustainability and issues around prison reform. We looked at sustainability and issues around poverty and housing and low-income housing and affordable housing and poverty and child welfare and all of those different areas in the role of sustainability. And the key was that he was taking this concept that people applied one way and said it applies more than one way. And so with that, we started bringing different colleges together and programs together in order to look at this issue of how do we impact the community. And so you look at that around this room today, but then around the community, the number of people who have been impacted by the vision of Norm and the work of Norman and how he was able to bring us together to be one, to work on things. And so I want to appreciate you and acknowledge you. And while, as I say, it's not about you, it is about you because someone has to take a leadership role. There has to be someone that's accountable. And you were willing to take that role. And so when I met you that first day up until this day, that you said, I'm willing to do it, I'm willing to do the work, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves, I'm willing to take the hits. because this is so valuable, this is so important. And the data, the statistics that you've heard prove that. So on behalf of my college, but on behalf of the community and everyone that's worked with you, thank you for your leadership, for your vision, and for everything that you do. And as the dean said, it can't replace you. So it's going to be up to all of us to step up and try to fill that gap. And there's still going to be a gap even when we try to fill it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Grant. Jessica Solis is in the house, Public Safety Program Coordinator and Communications Measurements Director at Seeds of Promise. Come on up, Jessica. Thanks for being here.
All right. Forgive me, I'm a little nervous. Okay, so the start of my sustainability journey goes back to 2013 when I was doing my undergrad here at Grand Valley. I was taking a corporate communications class with one of my all-time favorite professors, Tim Penning. And we were going to do projects with local organizations in the community. I remember Ron Jimerson and Norman Christopher came to the class to present about a little organization called Seeds of Promise. Operates on the southeast side of Grand Rapids, and I remember being really intrigued by the work that they were doing, and I ended up picking them as my project. So let's see, I was really, like I said, I was really drawn to the organization, and I ended up doing a communications project for them. And through learning about the organization and just engaging with those involved with that, I was wanting to volunteer at the end of the project. And I emailed Ron and said, hey, is there anything that I can do to help, any volunteer work that I could do? And he directed me to Norman. And Norman and I met downtown campus at Grand Valley, and we just talked about, what Seeds is, and kind of delved into that more. And he took an interest in what my interests were and what my skills were. So I actually began an internship in the summer of 2013, and I started working on the website and the communication materials. And what Seeds and Norman, nobody knew at the time. I was actually offered a second internship at a larger company, and there was something inside me that just said, no, I'm going to stick with Seeds. I need to stay with Seeds. There is something about this place that I love, and I want to continue on with it. So later that year, I actually got a call from Norman about an opening for an internship through his office and through the City of Grand Rapids Sustainability Department, and I ended up taking over the internship. And with that, I did the annual report for the organization, and I really got even more involved with what Seeds was doing. So in 2014, I graduated from Grand Valley, and fast forward a little bit to 2015, another position opened up at Seeds of Promise for the Community Development Block Grant program that we were running for the Public Safety program. And so I was offered that position, and I've been doing that ever since. So during that time, I knew that maybe I didn't want to do what my undergrad degree was in, which was communications. And I wasn't really sure, and I remember turning to Norman with probably several different ideas of what I wanted to do. I think one of them was being a paralegal. I don't know where that came from. Seemed weird, but he was always very supportive and was encouraging with that. And I ended up actually starting the Master of Social Work program here at Grand Valley. And 1 year into that program, 1 year into my new role at Seeds, and one baby later, I decided that social work was probably not the area I wanted to be in. So further research and things, I actually decided to look at public administration for my master's, and I never looked back. So I was very happy. I made a great decision for me. So now, 2 years and 2 kids later, I graduated this past weekend, which was so exciting. Thank you. And I will take my last class tonight, which is wow. excuse me. So, and tomorrow, excuse me, I might cry because this is an emotional week for me. Tomorrow will be my last day at Seeds of Promise, as I'll start a new adventure at the City of Grand Rapids on Monday, which is really exciting and a great opportunity. And I can't even begin to thank Norman and Ron and everyone that I've engaged with enough for that. So as I reflect on these past 5 years being involved with Seeds and this university, a couple of things are really evident to me. If it wasn't for the impression that Professor Penning left on me, I would have probably never taken another class with him, and I would have never been introduced to Seeds. If it wasn't for Seeds of Promise and my internship through the Office of Sustainability in the City of Grand Rapids, I would have never realized what my real passion in life is. Excuse me. And if it wasn't for my education that I received at this university and the connections I've made while studying here, I don't know where I would be. And just with that, I have a bit of a plea for the university, and I hope that you will continue to place value on partnering with organizations in the community and all around West Michigan, because students need that push out of their comfort zone. They need to have at least the opportunity to have experiences like what I've had that put me on my correct path, the path that I'm meant to be on. And I'm so thankful for the experience that I've been given, and there are so many people that I've encountered that have shaped me. And I know, again, Norman doesn't want this to be about him, but I just have to say he's very special to me. He's not only been a mentor, but as we talked about on Monday, Norman, when we had breakfast together, I consider you family. And I'm so appreciative of every time he's gone to bat for me and everything he's ever done. And I'm eternally grateful, so thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Renee Hesselink. Come on up, Renee. Vice President of Sustainability with Nichols, leadership team for our West Michigan Community Sustainability Partnership, and much more on your resume. So a round of applause for Renee. Thank you.
Well, after hearing everyone, phew, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Except Tim. Where'd Tim go? I get the email from Sharon that Norman wants to meet with you. When can you meet? And if I don't get back to her right away, then I get the phone call from Norman. So you know, he's out there, and I know he told me the same thing. It's not about me, you know, it's not about him, but you know, what he does best in my view is that he plants seeds. And he goes out, and every time we would meet, I would make sure that I had enough blank pages in my notebook, because I knew I was going to be taking a lot of notes. And even if I didn't have solutions or ideas immediately while we were meeting, I knew at some point it would resonate, and I would. So we've been on quite a journey. Not long after the 5 founding partners of the Grand Rapids Sustainable Partnership, which included the City of Grand Rapids, Aquinas College, Grand Rapids Community College, Grand Rapids Public Schools, and of course Grand Valley State University, launched the Grand Rapids Community Sustainable Partnership in 2005. It was apparent that the rest of our region, not too long after that, was ready to come along as well. So next came similar groups in Muskegon, Holland, Spring Lake, and Grand Haven, Kalamazoo, St. Joe, Benton Harbor, and we had a passion for sharing best practices, you know, making sure that people were connecting with each other and sharing the results of all of our work. So we all realized that sustainability was really the umbrella that everything else falls under. You know, whether it's economic, social, or environmental, it all falls under sustainability. So soon thereafter, we formed the West Michigan Community Sustainable Partnership, which included all of those groups, but we also have now Ludington that attends, and occasionally we get even Marquette, Michigan. You may ask what the common thread is with most of the communities, and it could be maybe our conservative roots. It could be that, you know, our passion for the Great Lakes. or our desire to be leaders in all our respective areas. But I really truly think the common thread that most of our communities have is Grand Valley. We have Grand Valley has a physical presence in many of the communities that are part of this. So, GVSU has encouraged us in Norman, and when George was in the department, we had a lot of encouragement, a lot of nudging, a lot of planting seeds, and, we've been having meetings quarterly with the West Michigan group, and, we kind of been struggling on where do we go from here. So I think we've finally got a foothold on that, and it's regional work that we can all participate in. So I want to just give a heartfelt thank you to Norman and the rest of his team, because where would we be without Sharon? And, he's been a mentor to many, many, many people, and we've heard a lot of that today. So really, just thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and I'm speaking for all of the communities in West Michigan, so.
Well, I wish we could give you all your 5 minutes, but that's why we will eat, drink, and continue to be merry. But we need to hear from one Norman Christopher. So with that introduction, let's give it up for this man whose ears have been burning.
Wow. It has been about the journey for me, but I never expected those kind comments along the way. I have a lot to share in a short period of time, but, coming from a business world, which I was for my life, into a university, that was a culture shock for everybody. Not only me, but the university, but I really felt I belonged here. I will share a couple of footnotes away about some things that you probably don't know that have been really important to me. But the journey is all about creating awareness. And we do that every day, but we also do it every year for our students with Campus Sustainability Week. It's all about generating understanding, and it's still a tough spot to be in, but I applaud Grand Valley for taking the time to understand what sustainability meant from the perspective of not just being green, but being the triple bottom line. But there's a fourth leg I will tell you about that I've learned. Some of you already are aware of it. But that triple bottom line of how does economic, social, and environmental connectivity take place, and can you actually measure it? We started back in 2004-05. And I do remember that was the first body of a piece of work, and there were many that were on that piece of work. James Moyer, I don't think he's here. Tim Timish, Jim Bachmeyer, saw him. Don't know where everybody is, but they chartered to do this with 75 indicators across this triple bottom line of peer. I didn't come up with it. All I did was research. They picked it, and that started the baseline that generated the progress where we were today. So you can't get to where you're going without knowing where you are. And so that was the importance of the AN assessment. The next piece is really about how do you measure this progress. You've heard about that. And then that takes us to this last piece, which gets through integration and embedding and gets to what I call leadership. And the ability to see where Grand Valley and the community, and I do not say one versus the other, I put them all in this mix of establishing leadership and skill sets that you now can see in the people who just spoke. That's where this is going. So I have appreciated them greatly because I had one side of my brain that worked pretty well. And you know what side that was. That was the right side. I didn't do so well on the left side until I came here. So I'm better for it in a big time way. And that's what I've gained from being here. But I wanted to at least acknowledge, and many of you shared some thoughts that I was going to provide back. And I know it's very difficult to do this because I know I'm going to miss somebody that's very dear to my heart. And why did I do it? Well, it's because I just can't remember everything that's transpired, but there were a few along the way that haven't been mentioned that I thought were important. First of all, being introduced to Grand Valley, that was by John Jacobois, who was the CEO of Monarch Hydraulics, who went to Aquinas and spent his time investing in me to come here. Secondly, to President Mark Murray for his willingness to at least say, you know what, I think we might be talking about something that's worthy of another conversation. We didn't have that first conversation, but he was willing to do that. To Tim Shadd, Gail Davis, and Scott Richardson for their willingness to bring me on board as a liability. I say that with true feelings because it wasn't quite sure how this was going to work. There were no sustainability coordinators or directors at that time. Why would I want to invest in one? So we didn't. But I said, maybe we could do it together. And they afforded me that even though there was some risk. So I thank them for that. Dean James Williams, not here, Seidman College of Business, his willingness to teach the first sustainable business course with me. Wendy Wenner, who is here, and I thank her greatly for her welcoming me to Brooks College, where I've stayed ever since, for that role of entrepreneurship and support in helping establish that sustainability as a core value. For James Moyer, with all those wonderful buildings, 25 of them, but if he was here, LEED certified building projects, taking Grand Valley and the community and all, Keith Wynn and everybody else here who's helped supported that over the years, to absolutely new levels. But it was what he asked me first. If we build all these buildings, this is early on now, when are we going to see the behavior change? I never forgot that. So I saw him here today and he said, I got to leave. And I said, fine. But I said, I wanted to let you know what question you asked me and I want to give you an answer. I said, we're better today. And we are. So that was kind of like a little wake-up call with the investments from WeWake, and can we see the investment change? Tim and all those people, and I couldn't mention all the departments, but Terry, for all that great baseline work that you started way back when, where those numbers that he said were really there. And for Janet and all the waste activities and recycling, and I could go down every single one of those facility services areas. Just thanks for the embedding of those practices. To George Hartwell, is Juan still here too, Oliveros? They're sitting back there, and I remember the day in August of 2005 when those two founding members started this Grand Rapids Sustainability Partnership together. Yeah, and it was like, what are we doing? And I remember that directly because I was there, and I still have the articles and the letters. It's like, George turning to me and said, I wonder if we could ever get 200 people, organizations involved. I said, man, that's so far out, I have no idea. But can we tackle 50 first before we get to 200? I said, yeah, show me the marker. Today, 275 organizations are still going strong and figuring out how to participate across the public, private, and academic sectors. And I said that to you before, Juan, you never know. That's what the community is, and then you heard from Renee about the other ones. But there's one more piece of that. Out of that grew something really special between George and I. I think if you asked him, did we know what we were doing early on, I will say no. From my vantage point, you can ask him what he felt. But I said to him one thing. I said, I'm going to look at Grand Valley through the eyes of being in the public sector, in higher ed, and you looking through the eyes of cities, and I said, maybe we can do this together. And we did. We learned how to start the sustainability planning and assessment and reporting. But more importantly, you reached out to Grand Valley with a willingness to provide an agreement with Grand Valley, which has now provided the city over 80 interns. That's one of my fondest moments, is to look back on what you started for us. So there's a shout out right there. And then you hear things like Jessica's story. Where she's going. Be hired by the city of Grand Rapids in the Economic Development Department. I also happen to know there were another intern there that worked in our shop too. So that's the proudest moments, is when you see the jobs. So I wanted to thank you both for starting this whole thing, and it still continues strong. To all the college deans, you've heard from many of them, and there are others, but I have to say one thing for the dean, and I'll be very honest because it was very important to me at the time. And I asked him, he said, you know what, I think you may have a chance here, but you're going to have to get your terminology right. I said, I'll try. But if he hasn't been willing to say that to me, to let me understand what context means, you can't come from a business world where I just came from and expect this stuff to stick without you coming back and saying, you know what, it may work, but you're going to have to clean up your act a little bit. So I want to thank you for saying that. And to this day, providing the input, because that's what we all need, is good, clear input on how to get to the next level. So thanks for that. And then to finance and administration, I see Scott Blinkhorn here in university development. You probably know it, but without your help, we never could have 7 sustainability funds like we do today. Proudest moment, this past year we gave away 7 scholarships. Thanks to Nichols in our department and others, that's what we were able to do, 7 scholarships. And Shelley's already been talked about the Voices. We started the Voices concept. What are you in, your 7th year? What did you say, 8th? What year are we in? We've lost track. But the ability to share a story each and every month from all around the community of why it's not just Grand Valley, it's here. And to that point, I would just like to offer that Birgit Close shared a comment with me not too long ago in which it just sort of said, sustainability has become the DNA of West Michigan. That wasn't me. That's kind of interesting. You know, all of a sudden, that's not any more activities, not any of our programs. When you say DNA, that means it's somewhere going backwards a little deeper. And to that point, the 4th leg of sustainability starts to really emerge. And the reason why it's stuck here is very simple. I had to take some time to go backwards and look at the roots. And the roots of West Michigan, culturally, were there. That's why this happened. This is not something new and different. But then, not only are the roots there, but the communities themselves. So what's this 4th leg? It's the one that takes all of this and makes it work. And that's heritage, culture, values, and a sense of place. That's why you have 8 of them. They understand the triple bottom line, but they do it their own way. Grand Valley does its own way. GRCC does it its own way. Aquinas does, and that's great. They understand the concepts, but they figured out how to do it their own way. I didn't understand that early on well enough, but it's there today to build upon, to your point, and regionally. And I must say thanks to this very special staff. Sharon Munsky, our office coordinator, Yumi Chakopik, welcome as the new director. Yeah. Get up! But we also have Yusuf Darwich, who is our farm manager. I couldn't be more proud of him, too. And I'll tell you why. You think things like food, which the students under his leadership now grow, and for Ann for shepherding all the exciting things that have happened to the garden, that has grown into this ag project, that has gained national recognition, and thanks for making it back to me like, okay, we shared some stuff. They were a little bumpy along the way, but we understood the importance of experiential learning for the students. With the fact that we had to run a business model to make some money to do all this, and now that's settled out pretty nice. So when you see an award nationally come to Grand Valley for experiential learning, that's where we are today, and what a great place to build on. But these little tabletop things that are there, Yusuf made those for you today. And Samuel, our graduate assistant from Ghana, and Anna, I can't be more proud of you too as students. And I just have to share a little story about Anna. I learned via Facebook, which I am not a Facebook follower, that she was so compelled on some of the things facing us today that she went to testify in Lansing. That's pretty cool. That just shows you what's here, not here. And then just thanks to President Haas. I remember meeting you in a baseball game, and you asked me a very poignant question, which I've lived with since, and it was on not so much about understanding sustainability. You knew that coming in. You and I have a common background in the service as well, but more importantly is where are you making the right investments? Wow. And so what I've tried to do is make the right investments, but I couldn't have done that without the empowerment that you came back to our office with because of things you signed nationally that we tried to do our best to figure out. But I didn't have all the experience at the time to do it. But with here, we were able, I think, to fulfill a couple of really good agreements that got Grand Valley headed forth. So thanks to everyone for that. What's next? I think it's already been said. The leadership is here to do it. The community is here to do it. But the collective support will be needed. GVSU has been blessed, and it's hearing those voices every day, to have a respected voice in a respective place in the community to host these kinds of things and continue the journey. And I can't take that for granted. We have assets to be leveraged here, but we also have a community that looks forward to Grand Valley participating in that space. But to do it, there will have to be more shared resources and have to be more shared best practices. And I just look back, that's nothing more than going back the way we used to do it. So I have to leave. What does all this add up to? It adds up to a study we did a couple of years ago. When you throw in all the capital investment and all of the education, which the students have contributed to, it's $250 million of economic impact. And you said, prove it to me, we can do that. The students alone take 15% of all their courses, of which there are 250 of them in various shapes and forms. That 15% equates to $43, $44 million you throw in the research. That's a significant investment that the students and our faculty are making in this space. It's a wonderful thing to build on. So we now thank the faculty who are here for all the grassroots. And it's a special place when you see things come up the way they have. And now they're probably more recognizable than they were when we first started, thanks to great watering. So I have to leave you with a thought my wife gave me this morning. Hi there, how are you? That's Anita.
Hey,
Anita.
And that's our daughter-in-law, Jennifer. So thank you. So I asked her this morning, I said, what has this all meant to you? And she very quickly said, you know what sustainability is? It's the ability to sustain without pain, because it's the right thing to do. And that's kind of bringing it back into your own sense of purpose, right? But then when you look at my favorite quote that I live with today, which has always been Martin Luther King's, the timing is always right to do what is right. It makes a whole lot of sense to me. So thank you for the journey. I wish everyone a blessed Christmas and holiday season, and the journey will continue on for all of you. Thanks.
One last message. T. Haas, would you please grace your presence here at the microphone and applause to our president.
Thank you. I'm not going to use the microphone. So I got to come over here. This wasn't the journey of sustainability. It wasn't. It was a journey of stewardship.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I think about the subordinate of where this fits, it's a journey of stewardship. Stewardship of place, stewardship of the resources and the assets, stewardship at this university for our students and faculty and staff, stewardship for our community, stewardship in the greatest sense of that from a person of great character. And I felt that the first time I met Norman. That what we had here, and he comes and Norman's Norman, as we know. Not only is he a business person, but he's also a salesperson. But from a person of great character, of the foundation, that he understood that, and he did his homework too, because he knew that my service life was in the Coast Guard. It was founded on protecting the environment, that I came from upstate New York, from a farming community, and I signed the tailor's agreement there. He did his homework too. So how could you say no to a salesperson who was selling something so important to this university that it's of value? But this wasn't a journey for Norman on sustainability, but in essence, stewardship and the character that you portrayed throughout. And I had great trust and confidence in your abilities with others that you were bringing together with you. That's a sign of leadership. Leadership with a person of character, wow. Leadership of a person of character who's serving this university in the role that you did. That's a triple wow, not a triple bottom line. But think about that. Stewardship and leadership and service all come together so that our university and our students, and you remember this too, we were driven by our students in many regards, weren't we, Norman?
For sure.
And that was the beauty, because we here at this university, and Norman understood this from day one. He might have come from a different sector, but he understood our mission for shaping students' lives, professions, and society. He understood that. And what we were going to do is go on this journey and discover along the way, as this was an adventure in many regards. And our students were going to be beneficiaries of that particular approach. And we were going to try things. I know Norman was willing to be kind of a chemist with experimentation. We're going to do a little test tube here and there and see what happens. And as it grew, we could see how that could, in fact, impact this university and moving from strategies to values. Remember that conversation we had probably 2 or 3 years, 4 years in my time here. We could see how this notion of being a good steward also played nicely in then to sustainability in our strategic plan. And one of the attributes that I really liked in Norman goes back to my Coast Guard days more than anything else, is that it's the 3 Ps. You need to plan, prepare, and perform. And in every case, when I saw the documentation coming through that I had to sign, which I did, STARS, for instance, and others, he followed those 3 Ps. He was a planner. And he did it very, very well because he had some notion of the outcomes that we wanted to have. And those outcomes needed to be measurable as well. We did a lot of measurement.
Yeah, we did.
And then we prepare. We prepared the different facets of this notion of sustainability, whether it be through LEED certified buildings or football games or curricular development. The students were there. We had to be there as an institution, though. And Norman provided the catalyst to have that happen. And then performance. You can't just stop it at planning and preparing. What you got to do. You got to perform. And when you have someone, as Norman is, a person of great character who understands that stewardship is critically important as we get through this notion of an academy, then we have the best of all worlds. And then we learn, because through that process, we become lifelong learners too. And we learned along the way, didn't we? Each step along the way too. So I just wanted to share, not from notes, but from the real understanding that this journey of Norman Christopher was a journey of stewardship, of place, and of people, and of the resources. And as you say, do the right things for the right reasons, and you can't go wrong. And that's character. Thank you, sir.
There you are, Grand Valley State University Sustainability Journey, celebration, the acknowledgement of a job well done by you. Yes, Norman Christopher. Journey is a passage of progress from one stage to the other. The journey continues. The bar has been set high. New seeds are to be planted, new leaders are to arise, more voices will come to the airwaves. But until that happens, we celebrate you and your journey that will come for you. So we continue to eat, drink, and be merry for maybe 5 more minutes. There are parting gifts for you as you leave. Again, get to know a Laker beside you, and again, congratulations on behalf of all of us, Norman Christopher.